The Beach FM Business Lunch Show, brought to you by PlaceMakers Kapiti and Horowhenua. Together we're building New Zealand.
Welcome back to the Business Lunch Show on Beach FM. Let's welcome back to the show from the Kapiti Coast District Council. It is Gwynn Compton. G'day, mate.
Kia ora, how's it going?
Very, very well. How have you been lately? It's been a while since we caught up.
Yeah, no, I've been good. It's been busy. We're sort of, shifting from the initial COVID-19 response into recovery stuff, especially, for Kapiti, all focused around the economy and how we get that pumping again.
Absolutely, mate. And you recovered from school holidays?
Oh, our two boys, they're still preschool, so it's been good having them back at daycare, and 3 days a week they're in there. And our youngest one just turned 2 last week, so we had a birthday party at the weekend. And that was all sorts of havoc, but it also sort of served as a reminder, about how lucky New Zealand is that we can actually have kids' birthday parties. And in much of the world, people aren't able to get together and celebrate those moments.
Absolutely, Gwynn. Hey, mate. I think I'm day 9 of my new normal. I got to work from home as long as possible, and then now we're all set up, ready to go now. But I got to admit, mate, like looking around the traps and everything, it's like it never happened kind of thing in some places. Well,
yeah, you have a look at the traffic at the weekends, and it just feels like things have, gotten back to this new normal. And it does look a lot like the old normal, but from Kapiti's perspective, it does certainly feel like there are more people who normally had worked 5 days a week in Wellington who are at least doing maybe 2 or 3 days a week working from home up here. And that's a huge help for our economy to have more people who are able to earn the sort of salaries that you're able to do in Wellington, but then they're able to spend more of that money locally, which is hugely beneficial for our local businesses.
Absolutely, but it's not, take aside those people that aren't going into town every day. It seems to me that Kapiti Coast has bounced back pretty well out of this.
Yeah, that's definitely my understanding of it. There's a figure that the Chamber of Commerce put out that when we came out of lockdown, I think retail spending was up 15% versus the same time the previous year. And I think looking across the region, you've had a similar thing play out where spending's been down in the Wellington CBD, but then around the rest of the regional centres it's been up. So you've got this quite a different dynamic of Wellington's loss has been our gain, and there's obviously that discussion going on now between central government, who wants to get people back in Wellington and working there and supporting the retail sector there, but also how do we actually make sure that the increased activity we've had locally, how do we keep that up as well?
We got so far with having so many local thriving centres, and now, they've kind of died out with the birth of the city centre in, the last 20, 30 years. I mean, do we go back to local?
Well, that certainly seems to be what a lot of people are looking at doing now. And as you said, it's been over the last 30 years, it's all been very much about centralisation and going into the big cities. And undoubtedly, cities like Wellington, there are benefits they provide in terms of, the cultural activities and sorts of things that you get from having a certain critical mass of people living there. But at the same time, I think a lot of people are waking up to the fact that actually moving back out to more provincial centres, there's a different quality of life here, and it's not quite the same rat race as you get in the big cities, and more people are actually starting to weigh that up as being much more important in the decisions they're making about where they live and where they work and how they work.
Absolutely. Well, the big one is that traffic. Sitting in it every day, people are like, why am I doing it to myself? So I know we're doing well in the Kapiti Coast, but what are some of those concerns that are still about?
Well, I guess for us, we're lucky in that we don't have a particularly big international tourist market here. I think some of the figures we're looking at in terms of Kapiti Island visitation is maybe around 20 or 30% of visitors were from overseas, so it's still a decent size of the market, but it's not the same situation that places like Rotorua or Queenstown are in, where they were overwhelmingly international visitors and their entire economy sort of geared around that. We're very lucky in that we have these links to Wellington, and we have a large number of people who commute in there. So we're relatively insulated from, the worst of the negative effects from the downturn. And we've got the big infrastructure projects of the expressway and transmission gully that, transmission gully in particular might be going on for a few more years. So, that sort of economic activity provides a really solid base. So there will be issues that could come up in the next sort of 3 to 6 months. This was something that ANZ's chief economist Sharon Zollner talked about at the electoral business breakfast the other week, where things feel really good at the moment, but the question is what happens 3 to 6 to 9 to 12 months down the line. Is the cash that people saved over lockdown gets spent, or the cash that they put aside for an overseas holiday gets spent. What happens when that dries up and we don't have the international tourist dollars coming in, if there are any impacts to our exports? So there's still a lot of uncertainty there, but I guess I'd rather be in the situation that New Zealand's in than what we see throughout much of the rest of the world.
Yeah, we're very lucky to have Sharon Zollner down at Southwood Car Museum. My partner Melissa was actually one of the ones that helped out Helene and got a shout out from Coram. So what have you been working on? I know there is different things that are in the pipeline with you guys. You had a big meeting last week. How did that go?
Yeah, so we had the Strategy and Operations Committee meeting last week, and I guess the big things out of that, we had a look at an update on the beach bylaw review. So that's a process that's looking like it's going to be concluded now in March next year. And I think, as people might be aware, that's all about how our beaches get shared by different users of it. So people who are fishing, swimming, launching boats, taking their dogs for walks and all that. So that's always there's always tensions in how that plays out. So council's taken quite a long approach into getting an understanding of how people are using our beaches. We're going to be going out for actual proper public consultation soon and doing workshops on what possible changes could be made to the bylaw, and then there's a whole process that goes on from there. So that's quite a significant body of work, because obviously, as a coastal community, the beach is hugely important to everyone here.
Absolutely.
One of the other big things we had a look at as well was around our major events fund. And there's obviously issues that with the economic downturn, you've got organisations sponsored, the ones who would normally provide sort of external sponsorship, they're not necessarily providing that at the same level as they had done previously. Mm. So council events also relied on external sponsorship. So we've made it possible for council events to apply to the major events fund, subject to the same criteria as other private events would do, but also having to demonstrate clearly that they've had a COVID-19 impact in terms of lack of sponsorship. So that's something that will sort of come through down the line. And I guess one of my concerns about that was, if suddenly council events are applying to this fund, and other private events will have the same issues around sponsors dropping out, you're going to have a lot more demand on the same amount of money. So there's going to be a discussion had about, can we put some extra money into that pool to help mitigate some of that short-term impact from lack of sponsorship.
But it seems, absolutely, it's awesome that it's there and it's there to help. But these events that are bouncing back, I mean, we'll take the Kapiti Food Fair for example. That's almost sold out. That's people are just can't wait to get back into it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really exciting thing. So we've got this interesting situation where the public really wants to get along and support these events and, get there and spend money with the vendors and all that. But at the same time, you've got, I guess, on the corporate side of things, a lot of businesses, they would have bled a lot of cash during the lockdown and don't necessarily have money set aside to sponsor the same things they used to. So, I guess council has a role there to say, what are the really hugely important events that are iconic and important to Kapiti, and how can we, I guess, help bridge that gap, so that in the short term, while that sponsorship money isn't available, how do we make sure these things still happen? Because they are hugely important, not just for our economy, but also just for our community well-being too. Absolutely, mate. Before I let you go, any last words on anything you guys are working on or things for people to watch out for? Well, I'm calling you from a briefing we're having this morning, which is on the recovery work that the council's doing in terms of that economic recovery. So I guess that's one thing to watch out for, because that's going to play out over the coming weeks and months. And it's not this. I know a lot of people sort of want it to be something that just leaps out of the gates and there's stuff happening straight away. But the reality is, all the predictions around the downturn, we're looking at maybe a year or two, and we have to have a program to support the recovery from it over that time period as well. So there'll be a lot of stuff that will start to come out in terms of engaging with our community and the business community around Kapiti. So as that comes out, I'd really encourage people to get involved with that and have their say. Fantastic, mate. Lastly, as always, where can people find you? How can they get in touch? So there's obviously my council contact details on the Kapiti Coast District Council's website at www.kapiticoast.govt.nz, or if you Google me, you'll find my website and my social media pages, and that's Gwynn, Gwynn, Compton, Compton.
Fantastic, Gwynn. Thank you so much for your time, mate. Always a pleasure to catch up. Go well. We'll catch up soon.
You too. Cheers.